What's up, YouTube? This is your boy Thomas coming back with another rendition of Truth Be Told. This week, just have a few things to talk about, and then we'll get on to your B movie reviews. The first thing I want to talk about, which is all over YouTube, is the whole, Jussie Smolette case again. They're bringing it back up. Apparently it's been recharged with many of the things he did from the first time for the hoax he promoted. I'm kind of curious to see how it goes down. Everyone on YouTube is talking about this. No one has forgotten what he had done, or how all the Hollywood celebrities and a lot of your Democratic politicians, they all supported him and we're all backing him up and blah blah blah, even though it was all fake. It showed the hypocrisy of celebrities today. I'm kind of curious if we're finally going to get some justice done and him actually be put in jail, because the first time they did this, the prosecutor was paid off to drop the case, and they did. So we'll see if that happens again. But that's one of the things going on. The next thing I want to talk to you about is how it's not really, the whole Jussie thing isn't being brought up again. It's not really being covered very much by the media. You won't see like CNN and MSNBC or them. They're not really talking about it. They're trying to not talk about it. They don't want to bring it all up again, which it's too late. It's been done. So it's kind of funny that they're not wanting to talk about most of your news outlets. I saw another story that is really actually hard to find. You really have to do some digging to find it, because the media is not wanting to talk about it either. There was a far leftist or anti-Trump supporter, or AntiFa. I think it was he was actually part of AntiFa. There's a story going out how he took a van and tried to run over a bunch of Trump supporters at a Walmart in Florida. I think it was in Jacksonville, Florida. But yeah, he tried to take out a whole bunch of Trump supporters in a van, tried to run them over. This AntiFa member or whatever, far leftist. That's not being covered by the media, which is, not surprising. Yahoo won't even cover this story, or the New York Times, or CNN and MSNBC. They're not covering the story. They don't want to show how crazy the far left is. They just want to cherry pick, some alt-right covered stories that may or may not be true. The last thing I want to talk about, I saw this news story about, as far as, news goes. Last thing I want to talk about is this story about this 6-year-old girl who has Down syndrome. I think it said in Illinois. But anyway, no, it was in Pennsylvania. That's right, it's in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, there's a 6-year-old little girl who has Down syndrome. And apparently she was playing around and, you know, doing the whole gun finger action like that, you know, going pew, 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 in the classroom. And the teacher asked her to do something else. And the child, you know, she said no, and it upset the teacher. So apparently the teacher went and called the cops, saying that, you know, the child was threatening her because she was going around pew pew pew, you know, with you know, her fingers or whatever, which was a little bit ridiculous. I mean, obviously the girl didn't really understand. It was, you know, it wasn't threatening or harmful. She was just playing, you know, and the teacher didn't like her playing like she had a gun or whatever, and you know, so she called the police, which was a little bit ridiculous. I mean, some people are so dumb. You know, of course this teacher is a Democrat, a leftist, obviously. You know, you find that later on in the story or whatever that's told, or the article that was written on it. It's just crazy. It's gotten ridiculous. A 6-year-old girl with Down syndrome, you're going to call the police on her. That's the dumbest shit I ever heard. But that's the way the far left has done things now. It's just dumb. They just get dumber and dumber, the far left do. Anyway, enough of that. You can look all that up, find it yourself. The last thing I want to talk about before we get to your B-movie reviews is last week I told you I watched you know, the original Battlestar Galactica, and I went ahead and decided to watch the whole Galactica 1980 as well. Man, I don't know where they were going with this. It was supposed to be like, supposedly 30 years they've been in space and on the run from the Cylons, and they finally found Earth, but to integrate into Earth society, they feel they need to do it really slowly. So they want to integrate into Earth society by like kind of starting a hidden colony on Earth or whatever, and then blend in with the locals, and then try to get them up to speed with their technology or whatever before the Cylons come and attack. Now, the first 3 episodes was kind of like the pilot of the show. It actually was trying to do with time travel. They actually had a guy that supposedly was doing this time travel thing, and they were following him through time, trying to stop him. One of the main characters on the show is this reporter woman, and she ends up going with the 2 guys. One of them is actually the kid who played Boxy, or is supposed to be the kid who played Boxy on the original show. He's all grown up now, blah blah blah. And they're now, I think they were calling him Taylor or whatever. But anyway, none of the original cast is part of this show, except for Adama, Commander Adama. The rest of the cast is gone. Also, I take that back. They also have Lieutenant Boomer, but now he's a colonel. He's Colonel Boomer. He's like second in command. And on the last episode, they actually have Dirk come back and play Starbuck for the last episode. It was called Return of Starbuck, but they didn't go any further than that. And I think they introduced this kid who's kind of like a progeny child. He's like a seer, and he kind of gives them advice on what they do. It almost looks like the commander's not in control anymore. He's all the time asking this Dr. Z, this kid, kid's like 12 years old, or what to do, you know. How do we do this, or what do we do, you know, blah, 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 which made entirely no sense and was kind of stupid. They tried to make it look like that this Dr. Z was probably, at the last episode, they made it look like, not necessarily Starbuck's kid, but like he was born from an alien race that they know nothing about. It was weird. That last episode, Return of Starbuck, was just strange. It made no sense. Anyways, most of it dealt with, they kind of threw away the pilot, the whole time travel idea, which was, I was getting excited about. I was like, oh, okay, this might be actually pretty good. But no, they threw that away. Screw that. We're just going to go with a bunch of kids that have superpowers on Earth. That's what they did. It's all about trying to start this colony with kids, secret colony with these little kids, which they dress up as like Cub Scouts or whatever. It was just ridiculous. But anyways, it was really, really cheesy. Of course, you know, the special effects ain't all that great. The way they kept their vehicles hidden was they could do some type of like cloaking devices. Even on themselves, they had like a cloaking field that allowed them to disappear or whatever and become invisible. But yeah, it just, I don't know what the heck they were thinking. This wasn't really that great of a series at all. They only did like 10 episodes and then they stopped it, which isn't surprising. It really wasn't that great. It was cheesy. It was fun to watch just because it was so cheesy. It was a really bad idea though. And most people don't even consider it canon. So anyways, that's enough of that. Let's get on to your like I said, I give it a thumbs up and a thumbs down. The acting was okay, but it was really cheesy and it was a really bad idea overall. The story was kind of lame. So let's get on to your B-movie reviews. Alright, movie holics, let's move on to your B-movie reviews. We're back to horror week again. But this time I kind of mixed some comedy up in it. Instead of doing a full-fledged horror flick, I figured we'd go with some like black comedies. They're still kind of horror flicks, thriller, horror, mystery kind of things, but with some comedy mixed in. The first one we're going to talk about actually has quite a number of stars in it. It just didn't go over real well with the audience. It's called The Burbs, and it starred Tom Hanks and Carrie Fisher, some big actors. The late Carrie Fisher, by the way, Princess Leia. Anyways, it made about 50 million at the box office worldwide. It didn't do all that great. It was done in 1989, And of course, it had some other stars in there. It had Corey Feldman and a few others. You know, you would recognize most of the cast if you watched it. Basically, the story is about these neighbors move into a house next door to Tom Hanks, out in what you would consider the suburbs. It was a little community. Anyways, nobody knows anything about these new neighbors. They're very secretive. They live in an old house that just kind of looks like an old run-down house. It's falling apart. The yard looks like it's dying. They ain't take care of their yard like everybody else does. You know, withered tree in the front and the back. And then late at night, there always seems to be what sounds like some horrible, monstrous machine being ran with, and they could see like, you know, at the bottom of the house, you could see like little windows or whatever, and, you know, strange lights coming from, you know, their cellar or basement or whatever. And, you know, all the neighbors, they keep seeing people, seeing these neighbors digging holes in the backyard and just strange, weird stuff. They're just really weird people. And no one's really seen it except for one guy. There's one guy they see every now and then. He's like this red-headed, scruffy looking dude. So throughout the whole movie, they're trying to figure out if they're burying dead bodies or doing something with dead bodies or killing people or whatever in the neighborhood. One of their neighbors, an old man that nobody really likes, at the head of the street, he ends up going missing one day, and they're all freaking out thinking that these neighbors killed him. So through most of the movie, they're trying to figure out if these guys killed him by trying to. They're not even really secretive about doing it, about spying on their neighbors. It's just kind of cheesy. The old man, he ends up showing back up towards the end of the movie, so they realize he's all right. But then, at the same time, they end up blowing their neighbor's house. Blah blah blah. Supposedly, the neighbors like this well-known doctor, this pathologist or some shit. But at the very end, they end up popping open its trunk, and it's full of bones, human skeletons or whatever. So they finally catch him. I could see where they were trying to go with this. They were trying to make it a really funny movie, but kind of freaky. A freaky funny, you know, like scary funny kind of thing. Unfortunately, I didn't think it was really all that funny. It had a couple of good scenes in it, and then the rest of it kind of fell flat for me. I don't think the audience took it as very funny either, because it didn't do all that well. It was cheesy and goofy, and it was just shocking how many stars was in this movie, and it just didn't do it. It didn't, especially for me. I didn't think it was all that funny. Like I said, it had a couple good scenes in it, but other than that, that was it. I give this a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Naturally, it had some really, really good actors in it. So the acting was really good. The story wasn't even all that bad. It's just it wasn't executed. It was really poorly executed. And the comedy in it just, I think it could have been done way better, but the jokes or the comedy, it just, it didn't do it. I think it just, yeah, whoever wrote this wasn't very good at comedy, I don't think. So that's your take on or my take on the Burbs. The next movie we're going to talk about was done in 1988, and it was called Brain Damage. Now this is a one of those classic cheesy horror films from the 80s. And this starred Rick Hurst and Jennifer Lowry. I could find a box office number on this one, but I don't think it made very much money. It probably went straight to DVD, more than likely. Rick Hurst is the same guy who did, which if you'd seen the previous videos I've done, Rick Hurst did the Basket Case movies, and they kind of do like this cameo shot of him carrying a basket, setting across for himself in this movie, the character in this movie, kind of like a reference to that. I think it's done by the same director. That's why they did that, but or the same writer too, because this was pretty cheesy and goofy too. Basically, you have this slug-like creature. He looks like a little slug, but he has eyes and he can talk, and he talks in this really calming voice, soothing voice. His name is like Elmer. This older man, about halfway through the movie, explains what he is. Some type of alien creature that came to Earth thousands of years ago, and people throughout time have been like buying him and then selling them to somebody else. And the whole reason is because he has this thing where he can he sticks this little needle inside a person's neck, and he shoots up this blue liquid that they call brain juice. And what it does is it's kind of like a hallucinogenic drug, and it causes the person to be high. And while they're high, this slug-like creature, Elmer or whatever you want to call him, he kills people and eats their brains. Yes, he loves to eat brains. That's his food. That's his diet. But he keeps the person doped up, and he travels on their back or around their waist while he wraps himself up on them, so he could get to these victims, and he keeps the person high so they don't know that they're helping him. That's literally this. The whole story is about this guy who this Elmer creature pretty much takes control of and starts doping him up, so he'll do what he wants him to do. So he'll feed him live human brains. At the very beginning, you see this old couple, and they're buying him brains from like a meat market or some crap, and that's not what he wants. He wants live human brains because it makes him stronger or some crap like that. But anyways, it's a really, really cheesy and messed up movie. And I just thought it was kind of funny. There's this one scene, I mean, literally, the woman's, there's a woman that he comes across in a bar, and the slug-like thing goes through her mouth to kill her and eat her brains. It was just retarded. And he's sometimes he goes through their skull and eat their brain. Oh, it was just, I'm like, what is this? Anyways, towards the end of the movie, it was just ridiculous that this old man that wanted him back, he wants to get high again, he's having withdrawals. Anyways, he grabs Elmer or whatever, and he basically just crushes him and kills him, and that's the end. And I'm like, the end of Elmer. I was just like, what? That's all they had to do this entire time? And nobody's thought about doing that for thousands of years? Seriously? But anyways, the ending was one of the worst endings I've ever seen. At the very end, when the old man's crushing Elmer, he's injecting Rick Hurst, the main character, with some of his blue juice or brain juice or whatever. And when the old man's squeezing him, he ends up squirting out like a whole bunch of this stuff into Mike Hurst's brain. And it just over-fries it. And at the very end, it shows him go up to his apartment, and he shoots himself in the head as it's bubbling out, like his brain's getting ready to explode. So he shoots himself in the head, but it doesn't kill him. It just opens up his brain and his skull, and this big bright light and electricity is constantly flowing out of his head. And that's the end of the movie. I mean, literally, they cut it off right there. Like, what the? Really? Makes no sense. Yeah, this is a really, really, really weird movie. It had some fun. It was just so dumb in some parts. It was funny. It's really cheesy. Not really great special effects for sure. The whole slug talking and opening this giant mouth. I don't know. It was weird. Really a weird, trippy movie. I'm surprised I made it through it, but I did. Just strange. This one here, I give a thumbs up and a thumbs down on this one. Just because the cheesiness was pretty funny. It was actually quite funny because it was just so cheesy and dumb. The acting wasn't really that great. It was okay, but I think they could have gotten some better actors for this, because it just reminded me of some real cheesy television show or some crap, like Tales from the Crypt or something. The story made no sense at all. Literally didn't make no sense. It's just like it was like a simile to like a drug addiction story or something. You know, just a twist on the whole being a drug addict. Other than that, you know, it was okay, but it wasn't really something I look forward to watching again anytime real soon. If you like that kind of cheesiness, you know, where it's just so dumb it's hilarious, you know, I say give it a watch. But that's all I have for you this week. Tune in next week and we'll do a couple more movie reviews. If you have any suggestions, please leave them down in the comments below. Maybe there's a particular type of movie or hidden gem that didn't get real popular but was really good, and you want me to check it out and give a review on it, leave it down in the comments below. Anyways, I hope you liked the video, and again, until next week, I told you you'd be told the truth, and you've just been told.